And now we get to the fragrance that everybody is readily talking about, and that is Acqua di Gio Profondo. I did do a first impressions. Please do not confuse this with that video. That was just simply first impressions unboxing. This is a much more informed review. I've had this bottle for about a month now, and so I do feel as though I've come to grips with exactly kind of how I feel about it, and all of that. This was going to be a hit. This was going to be a huge hype machine, of course, in the wake of Profumo, and Profumo was just the next level fragrance. The trouble is, right, I'm just going to say this very quickly. The trouble is that I've got a sort of a larger fan base than I ever have done. You have the niche people who love my sort of older niche intense videos, and they're just looking at me and they're going, George, please
destroy it, destroy the fragrance.
And then you have my more designer fan base, designer orientated fan base, who are looking at this and going, yo, George, does this smell good? And what will, the miladies think about this one? And so I try, oftentimes I fail, but I try to meet people a little bit in the middle, a little bit more these days. So I'm just going to try to answer the question on both sides. To the niche, intense, hardcore fragrance fans who are really, really into this and have like posters of Jean-Claude Ellena and Maurice Roussel and Francis Cojan on their wall. Don't worry, lads, we've all been there. I'm going to say to you, this is one of the most blandest fragrances that has come out in the past 5 years. It's incredibly bland, very, very basic, very boring. Just basically what everybody kind of thought it was going to be, which is the Acqua di Gio DNA hopping onto the blue bandwagon. It's very boring. Now, I said in my first initial impression that this does in fact remind me quite a bit of Office for Men, which it still does. And of course, why wouldn't it? It's made by Alberto Morealis, and it's in the same time frame as when he was making Office for Men. So they have the same song and they have the same dance. But to be fair to Office for Men, it does that song and dance for nearly 24 hours whilst doing push-ups, and then at the end of it, it throws itself into a ditch and sets itself on fire. It really goes for it. Whereas Acqua di Gio Profondo sort of does the dance half-assed, half-heartedly for about, 2 hours, and then starts to get really, really bored, and then it becomes awkward, and you know that it's bored, and it knows that you're bored of it, and then sort of awkwardly says, could you give me the fucking money? So although they're on the same sort of tram lines, at least Office is bombastic and it's wild, and it's just sort of, it does indeed try to punch you in the face and burn your skin off. Whereas Acqua di Gio Profundo is a bit more like, oh well, I guess I'm here. Now, having said all of that, there are certain things that I like about it, and there are a couple of redeeming qualities, but not many, and I will get to those. But first, let's get to the presentation. I really like the blue bottle, like the oceanic dark navy blue. I love navy blue, actually. It's my colour. I seem to really suit it, and I've got tons and tons of navy blue clothing. In fact, this is going a little bit that way itself. It's one of my favourite colours in the spectrum, and really, really beautiful colour gradient. Brilliant. Also, it's a great bottle. It's always been a great bottle design, even in the 90s, and of course this bottle has changed and updated over time, but it doesn't have quite the same class and striking presence as the Acqua di Gio Profumo with its black and silver. That is one hell of a presentation. This is a bit more muted and a little bit more dull in comparison, but it's fine and I really like it. It's a 4 out of 5. Then we get to the scent. And so the scent goes a little bit like this. It's my scent of the day, of course, today. That is a really good opening. Really nice. Really nice. Got like this fizzy pop orange soda, almost like Fanta kind of opening. Really, really nice with the orangey citrus. But then it becomes very quickly, like everything else, it just starts to become like a mesh of Bleu de Chanel and Sauvage and all that kind of stuff, and it becomes incredibly bland and incredibly samey, just like every other fragrance that's ever been released in the years 2018 and 2019 and 2020. It becomes very bland very quickly. Really promising opening, but then it just starts to sort of give up on itself and tries to show its true colours, which of course is every shade of blue. Acqua di Gio, just another blue fragrance, is really what they should have called it. So nothing striking, nothing amazing. But for my designer, fan base, yeah, sure, it'll get compliments, and sure, it'll get attention. It'll get loose attention, I think. I don't think it'll be absolutely staggering. It's very watery in that the blueness, ironically, with the more aquatic nature of Acqua di Gio, which it's trying to play with, makes it so that it's actually kind of loose, kind of a weak smell, and it becomes kind of like a fragrance that I could very easily buy at B&M bargains, or Best Sale, or whatever these these smaller companies that have fragrances in them. I feel genuinely as though I could buy a fragrance that smells pretty much exactly like this for about 15 quid somewhere else. So it's really not good. However, the only saving grace is that after about a couple of hours, it suddenly gets this the more herby, musky, woody elements of Acqua di Gio. They suddenly flare up, and as you're wafting it, you do get this very, very nice and quite sexy, woody blue fragrance. And I wish that they'd just done that. If they'd done that and played with that and toned up the more woody elements and the more herby elements with the blue, citrusy, marine, synthetic, aldehydic, whatever, if they'd fine-tuned that more with the rosemary, the thyme, and the different wood molecules that they've got going, this could have been really sexy and really quite something, and really could have turned a few heads. And it is in there 2 hours in, but it's there for a period of time. You have to wait. You don't want to be doing that with fragrances. You don't want to be timing, this or anything like that. And if I'm honest, it feels more like it's a fluke rather than a design thing. But yeah, the 2 hours in, there is this really, really nice, sexy, musky, woody element that wafts all over the place, and is very good and very, very nose catching. And I really, really enjoyed that. But apart from that, this is a very, very expendable fragrance. It's a fragrance that will come and it will go, and there will be many others like it. Expendable is the word. Expendable and bland. So for the scent, I like that little moment in the 2 hours in, so I'm going to give the rating of 2 out of 5. And so to the performance, the projection is more like it's like a 4 out of 5. It's actually very, very good, very, very solid projection, really, really nice. And for those first 6 hours, it really is blasting out of you pretty well. And so that's pretty good in that respect. And I do enjoy when it gets to the 2 hours and it becomes muskier and woodier. That can last for a long time, but it ebbs and flows, of course, from that to the generic blue fragrance that it truly is. But yeah, solid 6 hours projection, really, really good, and then it just really, really dies down. Longevity, around about the same. It's like a 3.5 out of 5. It's by about 8 hours, I'm struggling to get it. But that's a fair amount of time, a healthy amount of time, and for a fragrance that is more orientated around spring and summer, that's really good. So overall performance is great, very good and perfect for this type of scent. Overall, it feels more like a marketing decision than a creative decision to have made this fragrance. I think that Profumo was an unexpected mega star, mega hit, sold off the shelves, did really, really well critically, and especially on YouTube and Fragrantica, and critics who are usually very seething and hateful, especially towards designer fragrances, really, really gave it a huge ovation. And so I think they just thought, well, what do we do now? And they did arguably a good business decision, which is, well, we'll just make a blue fragrance. The only problem with that is, and it is a very nice, pleasant blue fragrance, I'd say that in the genre it's achieved what it's wanted to achieve, but it smells like every other fragrance at the moment, and that's the problem. There's some nice redeeming elements, and there's some nice ideas that I wish they'd gone with, and I'm okay to own it. I've got a bottle now, I blind bought it, full retail, and I'll wear it every now and then, maybe, but I've got 10, 20 other fragrances that I could pick from before I got to this one. So with that, overall, I'm going to actually have to be a little bit harsh and say this is getting a 2 out of 5 from me. But I would also recommend other things. I would recommend things like Versace Eau Fraiche if you want a more marine, citrusy, lovely based fragrance. If you want something that has a really, really good, zesty blue tang with a little bit of a herbaceous kind of twist, I'd also say things like Versace Eros. I'd even recommend Versace Eros Red over this, and I really didn't like Versace Eros Red. At least Versace Eros Red is a little bit wild and a little bit nuts. Not in a great way, but it has a little bit more character than this one. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. Anyway, I hope that you got the information that you wanted. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy this video and did enjoy the information that I gave to you, please considering giving me a subscribe. Anyway, thanks very much. I'm the Fragrance Press, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
The sign. The sign. The sign.